The third Breeders' Cup race is the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf on Friday, going 1 mile, and there's a strong European influence in this race, and we'll get to that, and they may be very tough to beat in here, but let's talk about some Americans to start off the race, and I want to talk about voting control. I think you really need to start off by talking about Chad Brown's runners because he has been so good in these juvenile turf races over the years. Voting control was impressive winning his debut. He made a burst from out of the pack, going a mile in his first start, and ran a relatively fast race, and he ran down a horse that came back to win 2 starts later in Ambassador Jim. Not a bad runner for Christophe Clement, leaving the others in his wake. He came back and lost in the Pilgrim at just under 7-5, but he was best in that race. He got sandwiched between the first and third finishers, 2 Todd Pletcher runners at the start, and shut off and dropped back, and he made a very good run in a race that did not feature a particularly strong pace, and I think voting control was clearly best last time, and had he won that race, I think he'd be a clear-cut favorite among the U.S.-based horses. So for that reason, I think he provides value, and he is the U.S.-based runner that I like the most in this race. But let's talk about some others, and let's start with a horse, Untamed Melody, who goes out for West Point Thoroughbreds, and trainer Graham Motion was able to win the summer up at Woodbine in his last start. And he beat some other horses, particularly, or one other horse, Hemp Hemp Hooray. You're going to see it here. I like the way he finished up, and I think that Untamed Domain is a horse that's improving with every start. When he finished behind Catholic Boy, who I actually kind of prefer to him in this race, he had a little bit of trouble, and he ran a respectable third. And I think he got a cleaner trip, and he got his nose in front in this race. He draws well in post 2. I'm not picking him in my top 4, but I don't think that Untamed Domain is without a chance. Hemp Hemp Hooray is helped by the fact that he has some speed, and there isn't a lot of speed on paper, depending on, of course, what the Euros do, though they're rarely that forwardly placed. But there are some that appear to have speed. But Hemp Hemp Hooray, going out for Wesley Ward, has the speed. Does he have the stamina and the talent to win a mile? I'm dubious, but it's not impossible. This is a pretty wide-open race, at least as far as the U.S. horses are concerned, which also include My Boy Jack. And we'll show him winning out in California, the Zuma Beach. This is at Santa Anita. But I think you have to keep in mind that while he got the job done in this race, he's actually lost at Del Mar to a horse that he's going to face in this race. My Boy Jack lost to Encumbered, who's coming back, I believe, in this race. He's the 9 horse. So Encumbered might be the better of the 2. How good are these horses? You know what? As far as the U.S.-based horses, I think they've shown to be every bit as good as any of the others. I think they have to be respected. Listen, they're out west. They don't have a great history of doing well in this race, but I think that they have to be considered contenders. I prefer voting control, but I'm not going to sit here and dramatically talk anyone off of any of the U.S. runners. Catholic Boy, who I mentioned before, he's my 4th choice in this race. Yes, he got an extremely good trip when he won at Saratoga, but that was the end of August. He's had 2 months to prepare. I don't think it's a great choice. They don't run a race between them. These are lightly raced horses. You look at the Europeans, they've had a lot more experience, and I think the experience may come into play. Now, let's start off the European discussion with Mendelssohn, who drew the rail in this race. Out of the blue, Mendelssohn got very good when he finished second to U.S. Navy Flag, who's his stablemate. Originally, Mendelssohn was supposed to run in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Dirt and U.S. Navy Flag in this race, and U.S. Navy Flag probably would have been the favorite. They made a late switch. Kind of an odd switch, and I don't really trust it. It makes me think perhaps U.S. Navy Flag did not show an affinity for dirt. Now, Mendelssohn was 50-1 this day, and he improved out of nowhere. Can he take another step forward? I suppose it's always possible, but I don't want him necessarily. I think there are far more interesting horses, and I'm going to talk about the Europeans. I'll start, and I'll do it alphabetically. I'll start with Beckford, who goes out for a trainer, Gordon Elliott, who has experience in the U.S. running horses over the jumps. It's a horse that actually was okay, but I don't like his last start. And since he didn't run well in his last start, and he'd need to improve, I think, off his European races, I'm not using him. James Garfield, I am using. James Garfield seems to be improving with every start, and I think he's a horse that can take another step forward and be effective here. He ends up being my 3rd choice. Massar, who's going to take a lot of money for the Europeans for Godolphin racing, he finished 3rd behind Happily. So at the end of the day, I know it doesn't help you in pick 4s, but play the race individually. See how Happily does against the juvenile fillies. If she doesn't do well, maybe you want to move down Massar. I think Massar is okay, but he didn't particularly capture my eye. The horse that captures my eye of the Europeans is the number 3 Sans Amali, and this is going to be my top choice. If you look at his race 2 back, albeit at 6 furlongs at York, a Group 2, you might think he could be the favorite in this race. He was dominant on the front of that race and a very impressive race and earning a figure, a time-form figure that puts him very much in the game. Then he shows up in the middle park behind U.S. Navy flag, and he's virtually eased. Why would these connections ship him here unless they feel he had a viable excuse? Even Timeform said that he ran so badly something must have gone wrong. He gets Lasix for the race. Maybe he bled. I think he's going to like the firmer turf. He's going to be a price. He can be forwardly placed. And based on Sand of Molly's race 2 back, he can win this race. And at a price, I'll take a shot in a race that historically has been very difficult for me. So I'm picking the 3 Sands of Molly on top over the 8 Voting Control. I'm using the 7 James Garfield, as well as the 4 Catholic Boy. That's the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. And you want to play it on Naira Bets and get that sign-up bonus valid through Sunday, November 5th. 10% of your action up to $1,000. Go to NairaBets.com for more information.